Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're actually going to go underground. We're going to decode the secret language of your home's plumbing. And you'd be surprised what it can tell you about your house, your city, and, yeah, your wallet.
Seems like a random collection of things, right? But believe it or not, they're all connected. They tell this incredible story about a hidden world, a world of pipes and pressure, and a whole lot of potential problems, all flowing just beneath your feet and right behind your walls.
You know, the best way to really get a handle on these secrets is to zoom way in on a specific example. So today, we're going to use Bethesda DC as our case study. But what we find there, it's going to uncover some pretty universal truths about the plumbing you'd find in almost any older established neighborhood.
Okay, so let's start with the big picture. Let's talk about the environmental factors. I like to think of it as an invisible battlefield that your pipes are fighting on every single day.
So if you take a place like Bethesda, you can really see how all these things start to stack up against you. You've got the old infrastructure from a century ago, beautiful but aggressive tree roots, water pressure that's all over the place, and even the ground itself. It all combines to create, well, kind of the perfect storm for plumbing problems.
And this is the big one, folks. The key takeaway here is that so many homes, especially those built between the 20s and the 60s, still have their original plumbing. And that plumbing is now reaching the absolute end of its life. So it's really not a question of if it's going to fail anymore, it's a question of when. All right, so we've talked about this invisible battle happening underground. But what does that actually look like for you, the homeowner? How does it show up? Well, let's talk about the symptoms you might be seeing. So, if you live in one of those gorgeous neighborhoods with big, leafy old trees, well, you also live with a constant, silent threat. Honestly, one of the most common issues we see is just the relentless hunt for water by those big, mature tree roots.
And you can see exactly how it happens. The tree roots, they're just doing what they do. They're seeking out moisture. And guess what? Your old sewer line is a perfect source. So they find a tiny crack, they work their way in, and they just grow. They form this huge mass inside the pipe that catches everything. It's a totally natural process, sure, but the consequences for your home, very unnatural and very, very unpleasant. It's like this slow, quiet invasion that almost always ends with a huge, messy emergency. Okay, let's shift gears to another really common symptom. I think we've all been there, right? You remember when your shower used to be this powerful, satisfying blast, and now it's just a sad, weak trickle? Well, there's a very good reason for that.
So what's happening is a slow squeeze on your water flow. Those old galvanized steel pipes, they're literally rusting from the inside out. Over decades, that corrosion and sediment builds up, and the passageway for water just gets narrower and narrower. It's more than just an annoyance. It's a huge, flashing red light. It's a signal that your home's arteries, the supply lines, are slowly clogging up and failing.
All right, look at this number, 10 to 12 years. This is a really crucial one to remember. Think of it like a countdown timer, a countdown for one of the most important and potentially destructive appliances in your entire house.
Yeah, that's the typical lifespan of a water heater, especially in places with hard water. The internal parts just corrode over time, and that can lead to a slow leak or a total catastrophic failure. I mean, think about that. After about a decade, the risk just skyrockets. And let me tell you, a busted water heater is one of the absolute most common reasons people end up with a completely flooded basement.
Okay, so knowing the problem is half the battle, right? But to really understand the solution, you have to get into the nitty-gritty. It starts with the materials themselves and the local rules that dictate how they're used.
I mean, look at this. The evolution in plumbing materials is it's night and day. We went from old stuff like galvanized steel and cast iron, pipes that were basically guaranteed to rust and clog up over time, to modern materials like copper, PEX, or CPVC. These new pipes are designed to last, to resist corrosion, and to keep that water flowing strong for decades. Now, this is a point that so many people miss. Plumbing isn't just grabbing some pipes from the hardware store. It's about following a super strict set of local rules, the plumbing code. These codes are there for safety and to make sure everything works right. And what's really crazy is that the rules can be totally different from one town to the next. What's perfectly fine in one jurisdiction could get you a failed inspection just a few miles away.
Okay, so you've got a problem. It's definitely not something you can fix with a plunger or a YouTube video. It's time to call in an expert. What should that experience be like? What should you expect? Look, the process should never be a mystery.
A really professional service call should be totally transparent and predictable. First, you call and you talk to a real person who gets what's going on. Then, the technician shows up. They figure out the actual problem, And this is key, they explain your options and give you a clear price before they pick up a single tool. Once you approve it, they do the work, test everything to make sure it's fixed, and clean up. The whole point is to reduce your stress, not add to it. No surprises.
All right, to wrap things up, let's do a little rapid-fire Q&A. I want to hit some of the most common and honestly the most important questions that homeowners just like you have about all this stuff.
First up, the big one. Is it cheaper to repair or to just bite the bullet and replace the pipes? This is the classic dilemma, right? Especially if you're in an older home. Do you put a Band-Aid on it or do you perform surgery?
Okay, so here's the general rule of thumb. If you have a single, isolated leak in otherwise newer pipes, a repair makes sense. But if you're seeing rust everywhere, you've had multiple leaks, or you know you have those old galvanized steel pipes, you really need to replace them. Patching old failing pipes is just kicking the can down the road. It almost always costs you more in the long run with repeat repairs and, potential water damage. Replacement is a real investment in your home's future.
Next question. What about those pesky hidden costs? The price of the actual repair is one thing, but what are the other expenses that just jump out and catch people totally by surprise?
Well, there are a few big ones. You've got permit fees that the city might require. Sometimes, to fix one thing, you legally have to update other old parts, like valves, to meet the current code. And of course, there's the cost of opening up a wall or a ceiling to get to the pipes, and then patching it all back up again. This is exactly why a detailed upfront estimate is so critical. You need to talk about these things before the work starts.
And that brings us to our final thought for today. Your plumbing, it's talking to you all the time. Those gurgling toilets, that weak shower, the drain that takes forever, even a water bill that suddenly spikes. These aren't just little annoyances. They are signals. They're whispers from that incredibly complex, hidden system that keeps your home running. And the question is, are you listening? Because paying attention to those whispers now can save you from a major scream later on.